Good morning. Glad you could tune in. I want to share something that I picked up from Bob Goff. First, I want to read from the book of Romans, chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. You going through anything difficult? Here's something that should give you some hope that God can work good stuff out of some of the difficult times we go through. We rejoice in our sufferings. Easier said than done, right? Knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. So just recently, I was talking with someone I've known for a while. They're younger than I am, we'll just say that. And I kind of was talking about a difficult season I went through, and I was kind of like, well, you know, God walked through that season with me. And he kind of was like, oh, he didn't say it, but that's kind of like Christianese. What do you mean by that? And so we talked about it. And one of the things that I found is that because I've gone through some difficult seasons, that the second time I go through something like that, it's not as big of a deal. And it's mind-boggling to me, absolutely mind-boggling. But this is a really encouraging verse here. So Bob Goff says that, he says he really likes candy, but his go-to is saltwater taffy. And they have this place that they live, they call it a lodge up there on an inlet in Canada. I think they have to fly in there. And he says there's a camp nearby, and then some of the young people come by in kayaks. And he says for decades, I've been throwing saltwater taffy at them with great delight. This is the guy that, took a helicopter ride or something over a mountain so he could drop ice cream sandwiches? He's Bob Goff. Anyway, so he says, not only am I a fan of taffy, and regularly he says he'll get a couple pieces out of the bag, but it's making a good thing out of a bad thing. See, it was the late 1800s, and a huge storm hit Atlantic City in New Jersey. And the waves crashed in through the windows of a candy store, ruining everything. The next day, rather than throwing his hands in the air, the owner put up a sign, "Saltwater taffy for sale." And the rest is history. And I shared this with Heidi, I think it was last week, and we talked about it, and I said, I want to share that. And she's like, we better make sure it's a true story. And so I went to internet and found out that, yes, it is true. Although this guy, I don't know what really happened with the taffy, but he did sell it as saltwater taffy. And then some other guy marketed it later. And then I remember when the 60s rolled around, we were getting it at Stuckey's. And it isn't really made with salt water, but it probably does have some salt in there. And you know, salt and sweet can go well together. But really the point of the story is, you know what? We all face setbacks. Things don't always go the way we want them to. And that can be just a real blow, right? But some people bail when resistance comes. Oh, that's it. It's all over. And other people, they innovate. Which one are you? And let me ask you this. Can you morph? Can you morph from the person who bails to the person who innovates? Be one of the people who makes saltwater taffy when the storm comes in and you got waterlogged candy. Yeah, that's kind of the moral of the story. So he goes on to say it might be a financial thing. It might be a relational setback. It might even be something, an unfulfilled dream that you think God has really given to you, and so your faith is being tested. Take stock of what you have, just like the candy store owner did, and figure out what you can make out of the pieces that you've been left with. And then to come back to the verses that the Apostle Paul penned for us, remember, your suffering, it produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And I could tell you about multiple times in my life that I went through things I didn't want to go through, but when I went through them again, they were a whole lot easier because I knew God would sustain me. Look to Him and turn your waterlogged candy into saltwater taffy. Have a great day.